Hi, Graham here, welcoming you back to the studio, and today I'd like to talk a bit about how I recorded the music for the song Room 17. The song looks at sex through the eyes of a voyeuristic motel owner spying on his guests, which is all pretty sleazy. For me, the sound that accompanied that image was some pretty grungy electric blues, even though the song itself isn't a blues song. Now, many years ago, I worked as the house sound engineer for a blues and jazz venue here in the north of England, and it was my privilege to work alongside many established artists in that field, such as the blues band with Paul Jones and half of Manfred Mann in it as well, Climax Blues Band, Steve Gibbons Band, Mick Taylor, and on one occasion the legendary founder member of Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green, with the Splinter Group, featuring Cozy Powell on drums, who very sadly died about 3 weeks later. A dominant feature of the electric blues sound is the distorted slide guitar, for which many bands use a Fender Strat. So I turned to mine, which is actually a Squier, but that's made by Fender, so that's okay. It's a Squier Silver Series, which is made in a factory in Japan, which I think now turns out Japanese Fender badged guitars. And that will be played with distortion and one of these, which is a bottleneck, a piece of steel tube which is chromed on the outside, and it sounds like this. So instead of using an actual guitar amp, I've used the amp simulator in Cubase, which is my music software, and that's partly out of consideration to my neighbours and partly because it gives you such control over the sound after you've recorded it. So here I've got a software simulation of a Fender Twin amp and speaker, and on the input side I'm using an overdrive distortion effect, and also the gain control of the amp there is up to about 7, which just gives a little bit more edge to the sound. On its way out of the amp simulator, the signal passes through an equalizer, which brightens it up a tiny bit, and a reverb, which is a kind of echo effect. Finally, the signal leaves the amp simulator and gets passed to this 370 millisecond delay, which is another kind of echo. Now, looking at the vocals for this song, we've got a main vocal, which sounds like this.
The man in room 17 is always keen to get down to business,
which is in the middle of my vocal range, so it's not got a lot of power there, but it's fairly neutral sounding. And then above that I've got two higher vocals, and if we look at those here, one's panned to the right and one's panned to the left, and if we listen to them in isolation they sound like this.
The man in room 17 is always keen to get down to business.
So they're not perfectly in tune with each other, which kind of adds a thickness to them, and they're panned, which gives a bit of width to the sound. And then we add those in with the main vocal, and it all sounds like this.
And he keeps one eye in the mirror while he do the deed behind your back.
So the higher vocals just give a little bit of extra power to the sort of mid-range vocal. So that's how the main vocal works. And then if we move on to this section, which I refer to as the dark section, we get a different sound again. We've got the main vocal.
Now there's a couple down the hall selling sweeties to the high school kids.
I wanted this to be much darker. So what I did was I took that vocal and put it through a bit of software called Melodyne, which uses clever algorithms to shift the pitch of it. And it sounds like this.
Now there's a couple down the hall selling sweeties to the high school kids.
Which is quite robotic almost. So I also tried to sing it a lot lower and then put it through a thing called an Octave Divider, which just produces an extra low vocal underneath that. And I think this also goes through a bit of tremolo, which just kind of adds a bit of dirty grittiness to the sound.
So I went in when they were out, 'cause I knew just where the treats were hid.
So again, those two vocals, the two low vocals, are panned left and right. And if I play them together, you get this sound.
Now there's a couple down the hall selling sweeties to the high school kids.
In addition to the main vocal and the two low vocals, I've also got a whispered vocal.
Now there's a couple down the hall selling sweeties to the high school kids.
And when I add that to the main vocal, it sounds like this.
So I went in when they were out, 'cause I knew just where the treats were hid.
So a bit creepy. And finally I add in those two dark low voices, and this is the final sound.
I spied what she hides in her negligee. I slipped my hand inside and I took the goods and flushed them away.
So that's the vocal parts. In addition to using vocals to make that dark section sound dark, there is a lot of drumming in there. And I'm using two different drum kits to get that sound. The first one is an almost free drum kit called the MT Power Drum Kit. And you can actually use this for free, and it'll just put a nag screen up every time you go to use it. If you decide to pay for it, and it's quite a good little drum kit, why wouldn't you? It costs the princely sum of €9. And it has some nice sounds in it. It's also got a built-in mixer if you just want to take the stereo output, and it's got some built-in grooves which are quite handy if you just want to throw something together quickly to start writing a song with. So that's the main drum kit, and then I'm also using the built-in drum plugin for Cubase, which is called Groove Agent, and that has a similar drum kit, but it's tuned much lower and it's playing slightly different rhythm. Not radically different, just slightly different. So if we listen to the first drum kit, it sounds like this. And then if we listen to the Groove Agent drums, they sound like this. And adding both of those drum sounds together, we get this big fat drum sound. And having that combined with the low vocals and the whispered vocals gives a really nice dark quality to this verse.
Now there's a couple down the hall selling sweeties to the high school kids. So I went in when they were out, 'cause I knew just where the treats were hid.
So thanks for watching, and I hope you found that interesting. If you're new here, check the description down below for some more information. And until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.